Thank you all for coming to the second installment of Tress Free. This installment, we're going to be discussing hair and politics. And the stylist that we have on deck today, we have Miss Ida Harris of Hot Peas and Butter, who is also a writer, and she has a blog called Natural Style Blog, Naturally Fresh Boulevard. I think I messed that up a little bit. Let's say it for me, Ida.
Naturally Fresh Boulevard.com.
Thank you. And also we have Miss Promise Gourdet, who is a poet and makeup artist and stylist. And basically, the inspiration for this installment was a decision that was made recently by Hampton University's business school. I don't know how many of you all heard about this, but they made a decision to enforce their long-standing rule to ban locks and cornrows. And this is a decision that's been on their books now for about 10 years, but they recently started to enforce it. So we wanted to address this issue here at Tress Free and get some thoughts and some opinions from some people in the community about this. So just to kick this whole thing off, I'm going to ask a question, and this is an interactive event, you know, so please feel free, comment, question, you know, speak your mind, because that's what Tress Free is all about. So with this decision that Hampton's business school made recently about banning locks and cornrows, now I know that part of their intention was probably to make sure that they prepared their students for corporate America, for the business world. And I know that in the black community, there has been this issue that comes up from time to time about different things that set us back. Do you all know what I'm talking about when I say setting black people back, setting the race back? So my question is, I want to know, do you all feel like this type of decision would be one that would propel black people in corporate America forward? Or is this a decision that does, in a way, set us back? The floor is open.
But then it's like, well. So whose America are we preparing them for? Are we preparing them for a progressive America? Are we preparing them for a America of yesteryear? Why is it so important? Why is it such a, okay, well, if you have locks, that means you're unprofessional. Like, why is it such an unprofessional piece about it? And I get it. Sometimes if they're not groomed properly or you just let them go, yeah, they are unprofessional. Absolutely, absolutely. But if maintained, and then with women, that's where it kind of gets to be that's men. Now with women, it kind of gets to be weird because to outlaw braids is like, okay, so we're going to outlaw weaves? Are we going to outlaw, you know, like, what's next at this point? Like, okay, so it's not professional if you have an afro. It's not professional if you have your hair close cut. Well, it's not professional if you have that updo. Like, where's the scope of where it would stop? I think that's why I think it sets us back a little bit, because how will we move forward, and where's the cap? Where's the cap?
When they shave the locks off, you lost the strength. The locks in Africa, because I'm African, are a sign of strength. So if you have locks, even if you're a man or a woman, it's a sign of strength and virility. As far as the whole standard going in Hampton, you know, I mean, any kind of standard is just an acceptance from the masses as far as, okay, well, you know what? Since no one else has locks in the workspace or in the office or anything, that becomes a standard because everybody agrees with it. If people refuse to agree with it and like, well, no, you know, the standard is locks, then maybe that would change. I mean, it's just, I feel like you do have to have a close cut, you do have to be clean for you to get the kind of job that you want, regardless of any qualifications you might have or might not have. So that's something that has progressively been accepted as, you know what, if I want to get this job, or if I want to go here, then I have to have a close cut. If I go in there with my locks, they're going to judge me and they're going to think about me in a certain way. So that's sad because the qualifications the fact that you have locks doesn't take away from whatever grades you got, while you were studying or whatever, or, your ability to perform. So I personally think it's a regressive state. But at the same time too, if you want to keep your locks, maybe that will push you into something else, into entrepreneurship or anything else like that. So you don't have to deal with that, and you can control your own environment, where if you want to go into work with a t-shirt, and you can do that. If you want to go into work with locks, you can do that. So it depends on what standard or what state it is. If you're preparing for the professional kind of state, then yeah, of course, you're going to have to comply with that. But to standardize it across the board, I think it's not fair, because some people are not going to, they're not preparing for that. So, I guess it's the best of both worlds.
The movie, The Social Network, and Major, maybe you can help me better with this. There's a point in the movie where one of the deans of Yale is having a conversation with another gentleman. I think it's about Mark Zuckerberg, and he makes a point about how at Yale they prepare their students to make jobs. They go out and they create jobs for other people. And I guess it's a question of, like you said, what are we preparing students for, really? Are we maybe even a little bit backwards in our thinking for pushing this acceptance and this assimilation from the corporate world? Should we be thinking more along the lines of, okay, well, our students should be able to express themselves, and we'll prepare them to express themselves in the best way possible, so let them create their own realities and their own businesses and institutions so that they can be themselves.
So can I comment?
Please.
So I think there's a way to do that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to ban locks per se. So I happen to have gone to the real HU. I went to Howard, right? So at Howard, you definitely have to, if you're in the business school, so per se, they definitely prepare you for being out in the corporate. You have to wear a suit every week, at least one day out of the week for your class or something along those lines, and they have a very, kind of standard corporate dress code, because to them, they are preparing you. And again, it's not to say, oh, you can't wear your hair the way that you want to, because I remember being in college, cutting my hair, coloring it, but every day, every week, I still had that suit on, minimal jewelry, whatever it was that they were preparing us for, per se, to go into the corporate field. So I think that there's a way to do that, but to kind of just say, take things off of the board, which is a, sign of expression, so to say. You never know what people are going through, and there's a lot of strength in your hair. So whatever people choose to do with that, I think they should have that opportunity. And if I'm going to be in a school setting, then okay, maybe there are some parameters to what I must do while I'm on campus, or if I'm going for a job interview or anything that I might be representing my university. But then outside of that, I think, it's just kind of premature to tell students that they cannot express themselves.
I really feel that it's a grooming, comes down to a personal hygiene and grooming thing that I think every individual should take account for. Because if you're whatever color you are, whatever race you are, if you're a male and you have long hair, it applies to that too. If it's not groomed properly, then I think that's what it comes into, is the grooming piece, it's the personal hygiene piece. That I think that people are stereotyping the dreads and the braids, because if you come in there, I don't care if your hair is long, whatever color you are, if you don't look clean or personal hygiene, you're probably not gonna get the job. I have an engineering background. I went to HBCU, and I have an engineering background, and I was in Dallas, Texas years ago, like you said, way before people were even wearing dreads, and I started twisting my hair. And I went into corporate. I had straight hair at one time, and then I decided to go natural. So I started twisting, and I come to work, and I had these twisties hair, and everybody's looking at me all crazy. But I was an engineer. I was a manager of engineering, and I remember my own people were coming to me and saying, Yolanda, you can't wear your hair like that. You're not going to get promoted. You can't wear that. And so my own people had a problem with my hair. But my fellow colleagues who were other than me, they didn't have a problem with me because I knew my stuff, I was on top of my game, and I came in knowing what I had to do. I took ownership of my position as an engineer. They didn't have a problem. It was my own people who had a problem with my hair like that. But I made sure it was well groomed. I made sure that I had personal hygiene, that I looked professional. And when I started interviewing people, and I started interviewing other engineers to be on my team, I remember interviewing a young lady who had dreads. But she had it very, I'm sure sometimes she probably wore it down and out, but at the interview, she had it very well tamed and it was very professional. She had it up in a bun and she was very professional with it. And I think that that's what we should do. I think there's more of a personal hygiene or grooming piece that we have to do, but I don't think you should ban it because I think it's a culture and it's a personal preference, you know, how you want to wear your hair. But I think if you go to an interview or you go to college, you should be able to make yourself professional in some form, no matter what color, what race, whether it's long hair, straight hair, men wearing, you know, you have white men who wear long, straight hair. I think if you go to the interview, you need to groom it, tame it up, or do something before you go to the interview. You shouldn't just wear it straggly. And I think with the dreads, it's the same thing for men and women. So I think it's a grooming issue, and I wouldn't ban it because I think it's a personal preference, and it's a culture thing too. You know, but I think it's the way you clean it and comb it and your grooming. So
I think the great piece of that and what we must keep in mind is this is an HBCU talking to black students.
yes,
I think largely in the workplace, I hear it with my clients over the span of me doing hair for 13 years, that largely it's us that has a problem.
that's right. That's right.
It rarely had any person
Yes.
sat in my chair and said, my white boss said this.
Exactly.
It hasn't happened, yes, it's
Yeah.
happened.
It's been
But
done.
the constant takeaway is, girl, it's this sister. It's this sister, or it's this brother. Say, oh, well, now it's better now that I, you know, roll it up and done a straw set as opposed to wearing my afro because it looks better than a bunch of copper bullets sticking all over my head. Or it's always us. And I don't understand, I guess where I'm confused is, why are we putting these stipulations on us? Nobody's imposing this. You didn't hear Georgia State or Emory or Georgia Tech say our business students can't have locks or wear braids. This was at HBCU. So it confuses me to how we're adopting these stereotypes and roles of corporate America that we're putting on ourselves. Nobody else has said that.
Right.
Nobody else has said that.
Do you think we open ourselves up for discrimination by kind of like setting that precedence of limiting ourselves in that way?
Absolutely. 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 Without a shadow of a doubt, because it doesn't make sense. It would be different if there were rules or regulations to what, I mean, like you said, even with a white male,
Right.
just graduated from law school, like going to interview at a firm, if he had a ponytail, he'd have to pull his ponytail back.
Yeah.
You see lawyers all the time in courtrooms, it's like, wow, he's still stuck in the hippie age because he still has this long ponytail, but it's pulled back.
It's
So
groomed.
it's groomed.
It's
So
groomed.
it's a grooming
Yes.
issue. If you're not properly
Right.
groomed,
Yes.
then we have a conversation.
Right.
Not just because it's not
Just
smooth
because you
on
got
the side, or
dreads.
I mean, because it's wrong. I don't understand. I don't get it. It behooves me, the stipulations that we put on ourselves, and no one else is putting on us.
Has anyone explored, like the source of why this was banned? Because it may boil down to grooming. You know, everyone wasn't taught to do these things, enter in school, you know, and at a particular age, we kind of roll, you know, we bucking against the system, rebelling against, you know, parents and authority. So has anyone explored the source and why? It may be as simple as that. It really has nothing to do with, you know, a black establishment trying to suppress a cultural thing.
Well, just according to the articles that I read, their justification is that they're trying to do their best to prepare their students for corporate America. for the real world, so to speak. So, but you know what's interesting about that, and I wonder, like, if this had come from like Georgia State or, you know, even a school like Yale or Harvard, would people be picketing and marching now? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've not heard a whole lot since this story came out in August. It kind of like, it broke for a minute and it got a lot of attention for a few days and then it kind of got hushed again. And it almost seems like, you know, when we are our own abusers, sometimes we have less to say. You know, but if we feel like the injustice is coming from another community, then we're all up in arms about it. Right? How dare you tell me I can't wear my locks? I'm calling out sharp and nasty. How do we begin to shift the paradigm? And starting within the African American community, because it seems like whenever we have these conversations, a lot of times, again, we're the ones who inflict the discrimination a lot of times on one another based on how we look, whether it be if you're light skinned or you're dark skinned, you have a weave, you have a natural, whatever the case may be. How do we begin to shift the paradigm so that we can become more progressive in our thinking in terms of how we present ourselves to the world?
Okay.
You know what, I think it all stems from the mothers. The mothers need to teach their children to love themselves. My mother taught me to love me, who I am, the way I look, whether someone likes it or not. She taught me to like me first. And I think a lot of our children aren't learning that. I taught my daughters. I have 3 daughters. They're varying in complexions. I told them, don't ever let anybody tell you because you're a certain complexion, light or dark, that you're not intelligent. That is where it begins, is the mothers teaching these children they're intelligent, they're loved, they're beautiful, whether their hair is straight or curly. My oldest daughter is blondish brown hair. My other girls is this young lady and her sister. They have hair that's like mine. Well, it's what mine used to be. But I taught the 3 of them to love themselves first and then worry about everybody else later. If somebody doesn't like the way you dress or the way your hair looks, that's their problem, not your problem. So these mothers need to teach their children to love themselves. That's why we don't love each other, love ourselves, because it has stopped where black women have stopped teaching their children to love themselves because they don't love themselves. And that's where our problem stems from. We've got to learn to love ourselves just the way we are. Light, dark, in between, straight hair, kinky hair. Love all of us, because we are unique. We are brilliantly made. We are wonderful human beings that have accomplished a lot in the face of all that we've been dealt.
Hi, I've been a stylist for over 25 years, and I do natural and unnatural hair. Something that I will say is that we as a people, we need to embrace everyone. You know, we always have different levels of acceptance of everything when it comes to being black. Your locks are acceptable if they're groomed. What does groom mean? We have to ask ourselves questions, you know, because I mean, I groom locks, but I've worn locks that weren't twisted, and I chose that I didn't want my locks twisted. They were clean, they were groomed, but you know, we have to work on our own perceptions. But when you ask the question of how do we shift that, personally, you know, just doing years and years of seeing the changes in the corporate world, it depends on what you're doing that affects where you're going. And a lot of times we're quick to turn on each other and believe into this thing that only we give each other the stress over the hair. But the thing about the corporate world is it's like a plantation, the way it's set up. The way they're going to have overseers that are going to be black, you know what I mean, to tell you, they're not going to come to you and tell you your hair is not, they're going to send somebody black. They're going to create a whole culture and a whole structure where people, in my opinion, from what I've observed, we buy into this thing of, okay, I'm on this level, therefore I only accept this type of, you know, and personally I feel like if we learn to embrace all of us, the whole gamut, whether it's straight, whether it's untamed locks, whether it's ungroomed, and then when we get into these corporate jobs, start doing things legally to start filing suits against companies who discriminate. Just like any other organization, sometimes we have to stand up when we get a corporate, because I've had a sister-in-law who had locks and she's an engineer, and they sent out something that said that they couldn't wear braids, and she got together with HR and was like, we'll sue you. You know what I mean? Sometimes we need to learn we need to stick together about our legal rights, understand certain things, and go through certain procedures to fight it, because it's an ongoing thing. And over the years, I'm proud to see how it's changed, because when I first entered in the hair industry in the 80s, it was like you couldn't get a job, natural period, unless it was a short natural. Times have really changed. I do attorneys, doctors, all types of people with natural hair, unnatural hair, but I think we as a people, when we learn to accept ourselves and everyone else, and it takes everyone, not just the mothers, it takes the men, it takes the acceptance of the men to understand and redefine what beauty is for black people, because I think a lot of times the culture of the men affects the attitude of self-esteem when it comes to women and what we consider attractive. And when we're doing, we support hip-hop, I always say this, we need to step to some of these artists and say, we need to see women that reflect us, you know what I mean, and the whole gamut, and just be open to accept everyone, and that's just someone that I accept them all, from the blonde, the straight, the perm, the weave. I'm not going to criticize or feel like I've evolved to a certain level because I'm no longer doing this. Okay, I have locks, but mine are better than hers because, it's more acceptable because it's twisted, or it's more, coiffed in a way that's acceptable. We're still compromising bit by bit to be accepted, you know what I'm saying? So when we get to a place, in my opinion, to accept everyone and really start hitting them with legal action, once you cut your hair and get the job, but then when you start growing your hair out, go to human resources and start dictating, okay, they're tripping on this. What do I need to do? We need to stand up, because it's not going to change unless we, stand up for our rights. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But I wanted to say something about, you were talking about legality, and where do we take a stance? And I say yes, particularly with the situation at Hampton. As a parent, if my child paid to go to that institution, when they walked in, they accepted their money, they didn't say anything about his hair. Okay, so I've been there 4 years, I'm getting ready to graduate now. Now you tell me my hair's got to be a certain way, but you ain't refunding me my money. Okay, so when I walked in there, then I would say, I don't know what happened with that situation, but if my child was at that institution, I would have filed a suit against the school because it's an infringement of his personal rights, of his, and I actually ended up doing it here in the city of Atlanta. My son was discriminated against because he chose not to cut his hair. He's an athlete, and he was at Mays High School, and the basketball coach cut him because he refused to cut his hair. He didn't have locks, but he liked his hair long. He would wear cornrows, and I kept it very, very well groomed. And he had been a star athlete. He had, the coach had pretty much recruited him at the middle school. And when he got to high school, and he tried out for the team, and the coach it was known that if you played basketball at Mays High School, you're not going to have no hair on your head, okay? You're going to have that clean cut, in Midwestern, European corporate look playing basketball. And he refused to cut his hair, and up until the day before the last day of practice, the coach said, what you going to do? And we had talked about it as a family. Do you want to cut your hair? He said, no, I don't want to cut my hair. I said, then you stand for something or you fall for anything. And people will tell you, oh, it's just hair, cut it. But it's your hair, it's your right, it's your inalienable rights. You don't have to do what other people want you to do. And I said, when you make a stand, you got to be ready for the fight. I said, well, we got you 100%, but you got to know that this is something you want. It ain't even about, he likes his hair. He likes his hair big, he likes it long, but he also liked being an athlete, and he's a student athlete. So we ended up, they ended up cutting him. The coach, they pressured him up until the day before the last day of cuts. They wanted him. But the coach said, what you gonna do? He's like, what you mean what am I gonna do? What you gonna do? He says, he never said yay or nay. The next day his name wasn't on the list. Okay? So we had to end up going to the whole, we went all the way to the U.S. Department of Education. We filed, a complaint against Atlanta Public Schools. I wrote every city council person. These are my own black people, Talking about my child can't play basketball no matter how good he is because of his hair. Because he refused to cut his hair. And in the result, the education department came down, investigated, To this day, that coach will never open up publicly and say that you cannot play on his team because of your hair. The next year, I left the school. We moved out of school because some things you fight to a degree, but then you have retribution. Okay? And so my child wanted to continue to use his athletic skills. And so we chose to move out of the area, which was a very painful situation for us because we're part of the community. We moved in that community because we wanted to be a part of it. But at some point, you have to, make your stance and move around it because, it's hard when you a parent and when you're a child and you're litigating for your child. The child doesn't always have the strength that you have as a parent because you've been here a little longer, you've been through some things. But my child is human, so he took a lot of flack. So we decided to just move him to another school, let him continue to use his athleticism to get him a scholarship, which he's on now in college on a scholarship athletically. Okay, but we decided to move out, and we continued to fight. They came down. The Board of Education stated that they couldn't, publicly say that. Now, what he chose to do, the next year there was a young man on the team that had locks. Okay, we went to go back and check, we stayed connected with him, and he was out there playing. But before the year was over with, somehow his locks disappeared. And I don't know if it was pressure. Sometimes it's not even the coach that the same thing. It could have been other people saying something about him, pressuring him about his hair. But like I said, it's a lot when you're a child trying to stand up for something that you believe in, even though you have the support of him. But the peer pressure is really, really hard. Everybody say, it's just his hair. Let's just cut his hair. Let's just cut it. But so you do have to take a stance and be prepared for whatever comes from making that stand. I say yes, fight in every battle. And back, I'm gonna say something. Be quiet. But I remember when braids came out. I was in the era when people first started wearing braid and braid extensions. And there was a lawsuit. The sisters sued American Airlines because American Airlines said they couldn't come on the flight with braids in their hair, with braid extensions. They couldn't wear their hair braided, but they sued. So that's why y'all can wear braids and go to America now. Because those sisters took a stand.
It's funny that you talked about that. I want to speak about trends because initially when I thought about it, it was like it didn't make sense to me because Black folks are known for being trendsetters. We start all kinds of trends, you know what I'm saying? So for us to be the ones to limit ourselves, it just kind of seemed a little bit backwards, because it's oftentimes, we've had these conversations before at Tress Free, oftentimes people from other cultures will be the first one, I love your hair. How do you do that? I so wish I could do my hair like that, and we don't even pay attention to just our sphere of influence sometimes because we don't see it.
We just take it for granted.
We do. Were there any more questions or comments in the back? No? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to make a quick comment. All this stuff is about to come to an end because we right here in EB Fresh doing it ourselves. So it's about to be a wrap for all this stuff, and this is proof here.
Definitely, I think so too. I think just having these conversations is one way that we can begin to heal, just by talking about it. Because so many things just kind of go unspoken. We look at things a certain way, we internalize things, but having an opportunity again to express and just to be honest, about how we really feel. Like the gentleman friend I was talking about, even though I didn't necessarily care for his opinion about only liking fine hair, I couldn't help but respect that he was being honest, and again, it's the honesty of the dialogue that helps to bring about the healing. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the conversation and now get ready to enjoy a wonderful performance by Yanni. So Yanni, you can go ahead and come forward and get ready to get set up.
Like some guy with the name, some guy nameless. I'll be your piece if you show me where the pain is. Some guy with the name, some guy nameless. I'll be your piece if you show me where the pain is. So I wrote a song for us, yeah, us. For times when hope and love weren't enough. My vision of a perfect world just left. So this little light of mine is all that I kept, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, strong getting stronger as the day gets older. People don't know how powerful they are, while others keep shooting, they were looking for a star. Cause this is what happens when the young go astray. This is how we live when the old don't pray. Community dies when the men don't stay. The world falls apart when the women are away. Hey, I gotta scream cause your life can't be saved. Their blood on our hands, what a mess we made. Gotta get away, learn how to fight, cause pieces of my soul done died tonight. Last time some died with the name, some died nameless. I'll be your peace if you show me where the pain is. Some died with the name, some died nameless. I'll be your peace if you show me where the pain is. Some died with the name, some died nameless. I'll be your peace if you show me where the pain is. Some died with the name, some died nameless. I'll be your peace if you show me where the pain is. Thank you all for having me.
Okay, cool. So again, let's give it up for Yanni. Let's give it up for Iwi Fresh and Yolanda. Let's give it up for Promise Day and Ida Harris of Coffees and Butter. Let's give it up for Major Miller. And let's give it up for Tress Free. Thank you all for coming. Let's take a round of applause for food, enjoy, mix, mingle, all that good stuff. Thank you.